Hello and welcome to this Tales from the Hangar Aviation Rarities episode about the Willoughby Delta 8. Aircraft designer Percival-Nesbitt Willoughby was in 1929 just aged 26. He started designing a radical flying wing airliner. This was inspired by Lee Richards' incredible gnome-powered annular monoplanes created before World War I. The Delta aircraft proposed would have a conventional wings and tail. However, the wings and tail will be united into one continuous aerofoil by the use of two booms, which would be of an aerofoil shape. Willoughby called this the rectilinear wing. The passengers in the larger version would be accommodated in the wings and the pilots in what was basically an underslung pod. This aircraft would be a complex design, and the best way forward with all the extensive research involved was to build a proof of concept small prototype aircraft. This was called in the early stages the Delta F. In 1931 the Willoughby Delta Company Limited was set up by Willoughby and directors G.L. Redkit, D. Gordon Smith and W.H. Parkin. A lot of work was involved as it was so revolutionary and no existing data could be referred to. Wind tunnel tests were carried out in the UK and America. The project had a lot of impressive support, including the National Physics Laboratory, Royal Aircraft Establishment at Farnborough, Queen Mary College and the Guggenheim Institute of New York University. The wind tunnel tests went well and the concept was satisfactory. A lot was learnt from the aerodynamic lift of the whole aircraft created, and one of the best results was that stall on approach was very difficult. This was all very encouraging for building a safe airliner for the future. And the technical side of its design was all very complex, as I mentioned, and long-winded, so I've posted a link in this episode's description for you to look at in more detail. So work started in 1937 on the originally named Delta F, that was now called the Delta 8, a proof of concept aircraft. It would have a two-seat side-by-side fuselage and nacelle for the pilots. Powered by two Monasco Pirate C4 engines, each developing 128 horsepower. It also featured a single strut non-retractable undercarriage. The aircraft would be of all-wood construction, with a stressed skin ply covering. The complex aircraft build and assembly took place at the Old Minster Airfield between Witney and Burford, Oxfordshire, in England. Welshman Hugh Olley was a highly qualified flying instructor at the Witney and Oxford Aero Club. He took a keen interest in the Delta programme and became a very good friend of Willoughby's. He also agreed to undertake test pilot duties. The painted red Delta 8 registered Golf Alpha Foxtrot Papa X-ray and christened St Francis, took off on its first flight on April 11, 1939, and it flew perfectly, showing none of the vices that some of the critics had expected. On May 14, 1939, at the Royal Aeronautical Society garden party at a little airfield called Heathrow, the aircraft was displayed and impressed all. So things were going really well at this point, and Willoughby, after the success, was now looking at the future and building the larger Delta 9. He was finding it really hard looking for investors at that time, as Europe was on the brink of war. So over the pond in America was an option, with some interest being shown over there. At one point he asked all the staff if they would move with him to America if needed. Apparently all involved said they would. Plans were now underway to take the Delta 8 on an overseas tour. One thing that had to be addressed before it was flown by other pilots was fitting a trim tab in the elevator. This was to assist the stick forces and various angles and speeds. This was completed in haste in early July 1939, before the tour started. So on July the 10th, 1939, Olley and Willoughby took off for a flight in St Francis to test the new modification. Half an hour into the flight, the aircraft was seen diving into the ground at Calcott, Oxfordshire. Both Olley and Willoughby were tragically killed instantly. One of the company's draftsmen recalled that an employee who identified the bodies was so shocked that his hair turned white overnight. There was general shock across the industry that the aircraft crashed, as it performed so many flights with no problems. After the investigation, it was found out that the trim tab stops had been omitted from the hasty modification. They also had no chance of pulling out of the dive. It was a real tragedy about Olley and Willoughby, who was only 36. Willoughby was a real talent. He held the patents on the new concept of the airliner, and with his death, it was the death of the company, and this was all just weeks away from the start of World War II. And finally, just a few words about the Delta 9, and that was a proposed airliner with many interesting features. And one that stands out was a series of portholes or skylights in the roof of the cabin to provide a sky view. An arrangement of lenses and ground glasses in the cabin tables will provide a view of the ground below. And as for a side view, you didn't have one. It makes me wonder what could have happened with his projects and talent in the future, and all the assets of the company were lost. So more than any aircraft I have covered, Willoughby and his Delta story are worthy of being remembered. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, subscribe, share or comment, and thank you.